How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, don't worry. I'm gonna break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG reels, Facebook, anything weird, unusual, unexplained, you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man, who's coming back to the channel, watching the videos entirely. I really appreciate the support. Found this video for you guys today, Seekers. Let's do what we do best, man. Say it with me, y'all. Let's seek the truth.
About 33% of people have astigmatism, and this is when the lens inside your eye has mismatched curves. Instead of having one curve like a ball, it's shaped more like an egg. And they're also usually the reason that lights might look blurry or have a halo or a ring or a fuzz to them. 83.7% of people can roll their tongue, but only 14.7% of people can make a clover with their tongue. Only 10% of people have something called Darwin's tubercle, and it's this little bump right here on the side of your ear. And it's believed that people who have this are better at sensing voice tonality. About 20% of people are double jointed. This is thought to be genetic and due to a variation in collagen of your connective tissue. Only about 10% of people have a birthmark. These birthmarks are usually oval in shape and usually come in a coffee-like color. And in French, this type of birthmark translates to coffee with milk. Only 1% of people have a double eyelash row. And while this might look like something you might be jealous of, this actually can cause a lot of problems.
An Olympic athlete has just died after she was doused in petrol and then set on fire. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Rebecca Cheptegei. Rebecca was a wife and mother of two living in Kenya. She was a Ugandan Olympian athlete. She actually just competed in the Paris 2024 Olympics as a marathon runner where she came 44th out of almost 100.
Wow.
She was a very dedicated athlete. On Sunday the 1st of September, Rebecca and her two children went to church, arriving back at their home at around about 2 p.m. when Rebecca was met with an acquaintance. This allegedly being a man named Dixon. Reports have stated that Dixon is either Rebecca's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. However, her father Joseph refutes this. He has said that Rebecca and Dixon were just friends and that Rebecca's husband lives in Uganda. Rebecca and Dixon began to argue outside of Rebecca's home so loud that the neighbours could hear. Then, using a 5-litre jerry can filled with petrol which he had bought earlier, Dixon would douse Rebecca in the petrol before setting her on fire. Rebecca would be rushed to the intensive care hospital where she had suffered 75% burns all across her body, and the doctors did as much as they can to try and stabilise her and save her. However, sadly today, the 5th of September, Rebecca's organs failed and she succumbed to her injuries, dying in the hospital.
If you see this man...
Why do people, man, just want to get into these fights, these arguments, and then do something they're gonna regret for the rest of their life? I never got that part, man. Just walk away. It's not worth it.
on the Appalachian Trail, that is your sign to run. This is Stephen Roy Carter. He was a man that lived in a cave along the Appalachian Trail in Pennsylvania, and he was known for fixating on solo female travelers. And to show you how much of a threat he was, let me tell you a story. This is coming from a deep dive episode I just did on some of the scariest Appalachian Trail stories. But in 1981, a woman named Rebecca and her girlfriend Claudia were hiking in the Appalachian Trail near where Stephen lived in his cave. Their first interaction with Stephen was actually when Rebecca went to the bathroom near one of the trail stops and actually saw Stephen inside the bathroom waiting for her, and he was completely naked. She was able to run away from that situation, but what she didn't know was as they were leaving that camp area, Stephen was stalking her and her girlfriend. Eventually, the two women found a secluded area along the trail to set up camp and hang out with each other, but what they didn't know was Stephen was watching them from the forest, and all of a sudden, he opened fired on them. Rebecca was tragically killed by Stephen, but Claudia was able to survive and run and get help. Eventually, Stephen was brought to court for this crime, and he said that the reason he did it was because he knew that the women were in a relationship, and that enraged him so much that he felt this overwhelming urge to kill. He is currently serving a life sentence, but this story is still one of the scariest things that's ever happened on the Appalachian Trail. And if you want to hear more of those stories, make sure you check out this episode of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Where we at? Middle of the night raining? Pitch black? Couldn't be me.
This is why you should always trust your gut. In the early 1970s, a college student decided to hitchhike his way home after class. A car pulls up, a man offers him a ride, and he climbs in. As soon as the car started moving, the student felt totally uneasy, like something was wrong but he couldn't quite place it. Without saying anything, he waited till the next time they slowed down and he flung the door open and ran away. 2 years later, he's flicking through TV channels when he comes across this special interview with a death row inmate. And it's just the audio recording, so he hears the interviewer ask the inmate, "Why did you remove all the door handles inside of your car?" The man just goes, "Well, the first time I tried to kill someone, I picked up a college hitchhiker who got smart at some point and jumped out of my car. So, lesson learned, remove all the door handles." When they showed his picture, the student knew immediately that he was supposed to be the first victim of John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown, who had killed over 30 men and boys in his clown room and stuffed them into his basement.
Have you guys heard of this recent case of this stepmother who starved this 4-year-old child to the point where he passed away? If you guys want to skip this short video and watch the full story with all the details, make sure to go on my YouTube channel. I have the video there. 4-year-old Benjamin Cervera, also known as Benji, was a sweet, playful little boy who was living with his mother for the first 2.5 years of his life until his father gained full custody. A year later, Benji's father, Brandon Cervera, met this woman named Miranda Caceres. Miranda was a single mom and had a 3-year-old son from a previous relationship, but despite this, her relationship with Brandon moved really fast and she moved into his apartment only a few weeks after they met. Not long after she moved in, things got very toxic at home and a lot of the anger was put on little Benji. It was said that she would starve him, and when investigators came and looked inside the house, they saw locks on the kitchen cabinets and on the fridge. They also had cameras all over the house, especially inside the kitchen, to monitor Benji and make sure that he wasn't taking any food.
Eventually, it would get harder for him to do so as more locks were put on cabinets and the refrigerator.
Aside from that, Benji was also being hurt by Miranda and his father, apparently, and there are videos and photos of investigators going inside the home and seeing Benji with black eyes and bruises all over his body. Now, Benji's father also contributed to what was going on in the house. There's text messages between him and Miranda where he told Miranda to not feed Benji dinner. He was also aware of all the bruises and injuries on Benji's body, and according to Miranda, he was the one creating those bruises. There were also videos found on Miranda's phone of Benji crying and begging for food, and these videos were sent between Miranda and Brandon. There is so much evidence in this case, but Miranda was the only one who was convicted, and she was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and Benji's father was able to walk free. I was not expecting that at all, but again, if you guys want to watch the full thing with the details and the videos, make sure to head over to my YouTube channel.
How rare is
Surely.
your body? Let's find out. Only 4% of people never get headaches. The chemical activity in your brain, the blood vessels surrounding your skull, or the muscles around your head and neck all can play a role in headaches. And some people may carry genes that make them more likely to develop headaches. About 60% of people have different sized feet, and the left foot is usually the larger one. And this is because for most people, the right side of their body is dominant. Therefore, it's easier to maintain their balance while walking forward with their left foot, relying on their right foot to keep them steady. Therefore, they step forward a little more carefully with their right foot. As a result, the left foot is exercised more and usually grows stronger and might achieve a bigger size. About 1% of people have had lice. Lice are wingless insects that pretty much just feed and live on the human scalp and drink human blood. And humans are the only known host of this specific parasite. About 7.5% of people have an underbite, and this is when your lower teeth extend farther than your upper teeth, and usually this is caused by a misaligned jaw.
Animals that are bigger than you think.
Wow.
Sea turtles. This is how big they actually are.
Damn, what the hell? That has to be a mega one.
Wolves. This is the actual size of a wolf.
Cap. What the hell?
Today we're going to be talking about the urban legend of Hug and Molly from Abbeville, Alabama. Also, I'm starting a new series about urban legends by state, and we're starting with Alabama because it's the first one in alphabetical order. She's a ghostly presence that is 7 feet tall, and she wears like this black cloak, and she haunts the town at night, and she apparently grabs kids that are being bad, and she screams in their ear at the top of her lungs, which can be deafening. Some people think that she was a mother who lost her children. Some people think that she was a school teacher back when she was alive. I like the school teacher theory, honestly, because like I was a substitute for years, and I would also do this in the afterlife. Also, I love that it's so Southern, that it's actually Huggin' Molly. Like, as a Texan, okay, I appreciate the Southern drawl on that. It looks like she even has her own Pokemon card. But she's so entwined with the town of Abbeville that she's even on the sign for when you enter the town. This would be a great place to take the kiddos. This is from the Huggin' Molly movie. Why does it kind of look like me at the movie theater when I'm pissed off that they run out of Twizzlers? But like 7 feet tall, hello, mommy. She's an icon. She is the moment. We love her. How do you feel about Miss Molly?
This is the unsettling evidence that was found after a woman vanished off a cruise ship. It was December 2004, and Annette Mizner was 37 years old. The mother from Wisconsin had actually won a 9-day cruise to the Mexican Riviera, so she was obviously thrilled. She boarded the ship with her parents and her 17-year-old daughter Danielle. However, on the 4th of the month, things turned from a dream to a nightmare. Annette left her room to meet up with her parents as planned at 10 p.m. to go to bingo. Worryingly though, she never showed up. Her dad was concerned and heard rumours that she'd been spotted around 7:30 at the casino. He went to try and find her but had no luck. He then heard over the intercom that a bag had been found. It turned out to be Annette's bag, and it was recovered from the railings on a lower deck of the ship at around 10:10 p.m. Beading from her handbag was all over the floor, which indicated signs of a struggle. Then came the most worrying discovery of all. A CCTV camera had been covered with paper. It was as if somebody was deliberately trying to cover over the cameras so nothing was seen. Annette was declared missing, and a Coast Guard aircraft and Navy ship searched the area for 16 hours. Tragically, they failed to find the missing mum. Now, Annette's daughter Danielle actually claimed a strange man had been harassing her mum, and they'd reported it to staff, but nothing had been done. Annette's husband feels that she may have fallen by accident or could have been pushed overboard. Her fate remains a mystery to this day.
These two were having sex, she called out the wrong name, and he literally ripped her insides out with his bare hands. In 2015, Fidel Lopez murdered Maria Nemeth for saying the wrong name during sex. She called out her ex-husband's name instead of his. And reading about this case was like nightmare fuel. He went on to assault her with a hot curling iron, and then he...
That does not sound pleasant at all. All just because you called out the wrong name? People are dangerous individuals, man.
This is a true horrifying story of Hamdan School in Uganda. This school is an Islamic boarding school for girls. It was donated by one of the royal family members of Dubai 22 years ago. This story was submitted by Afra. An Arabic girl back in 2009 was a student at this high school. She knew that the school was haunted and that there was a graveyard right behind the school. And she heard rumors of many incidents where girls were possessed by jinns. But everything else about the school seems fine, because it's one of the most successful Islamic boarding schools in that region. But that does not deny the fact that jinns may live inside the school. Afra experienced something, and being in her 30s today, this one incident will always haunt her. Afra had a mutual friend that was a student in that same school. She was regularly possessed by one jinn. Out of all the religious students, she was one of the very few that didn't really care about the Islamic education. She always used to party, drink, hangs out with guys, and the jinn that used to possess her was surprisingly a Muslim. He was just furious that she used to disobey her family and her religion. They brought her to one of the halls in the school and they started a ruqya session. Afra was there witnessing the whole thing. After many attempts of trying to make this jinn speak, he finally responded. I am possessing this girl because she disobeys. I will not leave until she changes. They were all shocked and they proceed with the recitation. The moment they stop, just for a few seconds, the possessed girl stares at Afra. Who is this girl? Why is she very quiet? She is very pretty, very nice, but I cannot go near her. Afra froze in her place. She felt numb all around, and she was not able to move a single muscle. The Imam was intrigued, so he asks the jinn, why can't you go near her? What is stopping you? It was a back and forth questioning. The jinn kept saying, I can't. Why can't you? Until it responded. There is someone in front of her with light. What does that mean? They ask. There is someone in front of her with light. I can't go near her. They couldn't interpret what this was exactly. It could have been the veil of light from the Adhkar. But regardless, Afra will never forget the demon's eyes staring deep into her soul, wanting to possess her.
Okay. Got a haunted boarding school.
Scariest urban legends from every US state. This shows some of the most popular urban legends from every single state across the USA. And as you've probably guessed, in this series we're going through all of them. From the most normal ones to the really dark, disturbing ones. So let's kick off part 2. Oh, this is creepy. So the legend goes, a long time ago in New York in a children's hospital. Children would be in this hospital and at night obviously they'd basically just be left alone. The legend was about someone called Cropsy. Cropsy has a hook for a hand and lurks around at night in the children's hospital. He stalked and unalived these people who he found walking in the corridors at night. Apparently everybody who goes to camp in upstate New York knows about this legend, so let me know if that's true. This is where things get even more disturbing. A documentary was posted which basically confirmed this was real. Convicted killer and kidnapper Andrew Rand. That's him there in the middle, and it was real. A follow button, it's going to get crazy, and let me know which state you're from.
Cropsy.
The bedroom scene from Terrifier 2 is not that bad. That's what all of you keep saying. Art the Clown literally chases someone down into their bedroom, carves them up, and then pours salt all over them while they're still alive. And genuinely enjoys it. That scene is insane. I guess if we're talking about insane unalivings, we have to talk about the scene where someone gets sucked into their bed in Nightmare on Elm Street. My boy just falls asleep, he just wants to go to bed. And then his room gets absolutely painted. You then have to talk about the chainsaw scene from American Psycho. My boy throws the chainsaw down the stairs, unaliving someone in half. American Psycho's definitely got some of the craziest premises of any movie. We then of course have to throw in Hereditary if we're talking about crazy unalivings in movies. Granted, it's not gory. But if you've seen the movie, you know what happens. Everything is fine, everyone's having a good time. And then bam, a telephone pole comes out of nowhere. Straight cooked. And then finally, probably one of the saddest, most realist unalivings is the ending of The Mist. Now granted, this is not my favorite horror movie ever, but the ending is crazy. It's the end of the world. They run to their car. It's my boy and his whole family. What does he do? He tries to save them. By, of course, unaliving them because he doesn't want them to reap the same fate as everybody else. And then he gets saved. That right there is a massive tear-up moment. But those are some movies that do have insane unalivings, just like the bedroom scene.
Do sound crazy, man. They coming out with a Terrifier 4, right? To finish it off. Who was that walking towards him?
These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. Episode 21. Number 1. The black box. In every aircraft, there is something known as a black box, and before every plane crash, the black box stores recordings of passengers screaming before they die. The most common word that black boxes recorded before a crash is the word mama. Number 2. Bodies are sometimes found in hotel beds. Guests from different countries from around the world have reported foul smells in their bedrooms, only to discover a corpse stuffed inside the mattress after sleeping on it for days. Number 3. People who wake up during surgery. Anesthetic awareness. It is a medical term known for when patients wake up mid-surgery and they feel everything, including the pain. But because of the anesthesia, they are unable to move nor speak. Number 4. There are hundreds of active serial killers walking free right now. The FBI estimates that at least 2,000 active serial killers are currently uncaught around the world. Number 5. There's a 1 in 3 chance your house has hidden mold that can affect your brain. Long-term exposure has been linked to hallucinations, memory loss, and paranoia, and most people never find out about the mold until it's too late. Number 6. Sometimes bodies aren't buried, they're stored and forgotten. In some hospital morgues, unclaimed bodies are stacked in freezers for years until they're either cremated without a name or sold for research. Number 7. There are people who fake being dead and live among corpses. They are known as necrosadists. They sneak into morgues or graveyards at night, not to harm, but to feel close to the dead. Number 8. Cameras sometimes capture things the eye can't see.
True.
Paranormal investigators have caught unexplained figures, shadows, and even faces in rooms that were completely empty. Some claim it's the only time jinns make themselves visible. If you want more, like and follow for episode 22.
This guy, he really just is the worst. He followed her into a school bathroom, but she never walked back out. 21-year-old Lily James was working late at St. Andrew's Cathedral School in Sydney, Australia, where she was a water polo coach. On October 25th, 2023, Lily went with her athletes to a water polo session and returned to the school at around 7 p.m. Lily herself had a water polo game later that same night, so she quickly grabbed her swimsuit and she made her way to the gym's bathroom so she could change. At that time, she had just ended a very casual 5-week relationship with one of her coworkers. It wasn't supposed to be serious, and she was clear from the start that she just wanted something casual and something light. But the colleague that she had been seeing, 23-year-old Paul Tyson, didn't agree. After Lily broke up with him, Paul started acting possessive, obsessive, and behind the scenes, he was stalking her. From the outside, Paul seemed like a regular guy, athletic, friendly, educated. But this actually wasn't the first time that he had shown red flags. A former girlfriend said that he actually stalked her, hacked her social accounts, and even flew across the world to confront her when she tried to break up with him. Lily had no idea about any of this, and when she ended things, he spiraled. In the days following the breakup, Paul rented cars just to drive to her house, take pictures of her home and of her family's cars, and just watch her. He would track her Snapchat location and watched her from outside without her ever knowing. He also went to a hardware store and bought duct tape and a hammer. On October 25th, Paul showed up at St. Andrews hours before Lily was supposed to return to the school. He tampered with the gym's bathroom doors and placed a cleaning in progress sign in front of a stall to trap Lily in another specific stall. He even rehearsed how he would ambush her, which was captured on the school's CCTV footage. At 7:12 p.m., Lily walked towards the bathroom to change into her swimsuit for her water polo game. Paul waited, and then he followed. He stood outside the stall she was in. Then he pulled the hammer from his backpack and forced the door open. What happened next was just brutal. She tried to fight back, but the injuries were just too much. After this attack, he actually took her phone and texted her dad, pretending to be her. He messaged her father asking him to not call, to not ask any questions, but to just come to the school and pick her up. Her father asked if she was okay, and the response back was, "Yes, just come, trouble." Paul did this because he wanted Lily's father to find her body. It's just disgusting. After that, Paul drove to a Cliffside Reserve. He called 000, which is like 911, and anonymously reported that a woman's body was in the school bathroom. Then he vanished. Back at the school, police found Lily in the bathroom stall. The injuries to her head and neck were just so severe, and she was almost unrecognizable. Police quickly reviewed security footage and realized who the suspect was. It was Paul. The investigation continued, and that's when they discovered all of Paul's lies. He had lied about his work, he had fake documents to stay in the country since he was originally from the Netherlands, and he also had created a fake Snapchat account to spy on Lily using another woman's name. He pretended to be someone he wasn't, but in the end, his obsession, his control, and his inability to accept rejection revealed exactly who he was. Experts say that Paul was a narcissist who saw rejection as something that needed to be punished, and because of that, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her is gone. Lily isn't only a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a coach, a dancer, a friend. She loved chocolate, she loved sweets, she loved to perform, and she made everyone around her feel seen and feel supported. Her family is just so devastated. Her mom, Peta, who is also battling cancer, says she still walks into Lily's room just to feel close to her. Her dad, Jamie, is carrying a pain and guilt that no parent should ever have to feel. And Lily's younger brother, Max, is now left without his precious sister. Lily should still be here. So should every woman who has lost her life at the hands of a jealous, obsessive, or resentful partner. Lily's parents have spoken out about how important it is to teach young men how to handle rejection with maturity, because learning that could save lives and protect.
New, Part 18. A man from Queens once spent 5 months in jail completely unaware that his bail was just $2. Since spiders molt, when you see what you might think is a dead spider, it could just be that the spider left behind its exoskeleton and is now bigger than before. Almost everyone on Earth is walking around with a bunch of poop inside of them. Scientists accidentally killed the world's oldest living animal, which was a clam that lived to be 507 years old. Statistically speaking, at least one person who comments on this video will not be alive tomorrow. The real reason you shouldn't eat raw cookie dough isn't because of getting sick from eating raw eggs. It's because you shouldn't eat raw flour, which contains fecal matter from all the birds flying over the field and pooping on the wheat.
These are 8
Stay away
horrifying
from cookie
facts
dough.
that will probably keep you up at night. Sometimes you laugh, talk, and cry in sleep. It's often a spirit sitting beside you in bed. You are more likely to be bitten by someone in New York than to be bitten by a shark. A human head remains conscious for 20 seconds after being decapitated. If you search up this number on Google, you'll find people with their heads in fridges. Gelatin is made out of bones. That's right. The melted marshmallow in your hot chocolate is melted animal bone. It's good stuff. You have no way of really knowing if everyone experiences reality and consciousness the same way you do. If a panda finds a fresh carcass, they'll eat it. And last but not least, your phone is likely spying on you right now as you're watching this. Yeah, there's a lot more. Like for part 8.
Turn off that camera on your phone, bro. It's watching your every move.
What was the Russian sleep experiment? The Russian sleep experiment is where they took 5 prisoners of war and kept them captive in a room for 30 days without sleep. The whole goal of this whole experiment was to see what would happen in the human body and mind without sleeping for 30 days. Kind of like a sleep deprivation experiment. And I'm gonna be honest, the way they were keeping them awake was absolutely insane. Not only having oxygen constantly pumped throughout that room, kind of like a casino, because obviously there was no windows because they didn't want them to know what time of day it was. Sort of, as I said, like a casino where they pump oxygen in, you have no idea what time it is, and you kind of always feel awake. But the other way they were keeping them awake was by pinning them with amphetamines to ensure them staying awake. Now obviously the experiment did not go as planned, with some of them just being unalive just due to the fact of being up for too long. Others screaming so loud that their vocal cords actually ripped out, causing them to be unalive. Now back in 2018, we were supposed to be getting a full feature-length film, a real adaptation of this creepypasta into a movie. Now there are some pretty good short films on YouTube depicting this whole entire story, but we were supposed to get a feature-length film a couple years ago. Now obviously this is a creepypasta, so comment down below what creepypasta I should cover next.
What happened to the film?
Facts that'll make you smile, part 8. Seahorses will get married and perform daily bonding rituals with their other half. When your dog puts its paw on you when you're petting them, that means that they're petting you back. Cats don't meow to other adult cats, so if one meows at you, that means it's making an effort to communicate with you. Rats can learn how to play hide and seek and they will squeak with joy when they win.
Really? What the heck? One of the rats in NYC sewers, man, they be playing hide and seek with people.
Sometimes in movies, when dogs have to look very mean and threatening, they actually have to redo their tails with CGI because they won't stop wagging because they're doing such a good job acting. When bees run into each other, they actually make like a little whoop sound. Fish are actually able to recognize their owners. There's this weird misconception with people that they think that fish can't see out of the glass of their aquarium, but they actually have surprisingly good eyesight.
Really?
Animal facts that'll blow your mind right out of your head. Contrary to popular belief, tigers aren't always solo hunters. They hunt in packs a lot, and a pack of tigers is called an ambush, as you can see why. Flamingos are naturally gray. That's their natural color, but they turn pink because of their diet of seafood. The black-footed cat is the most dominant hunter on the planet, despite standing 6 inches tall. There's a crocodile named Gustav that's believed to have killed over 300 people, and he's still out there. Oh, and I guess crocodiles got a new update, and apparently they can climb trees now? The chicken is closer related to the T-Rex than it is any other bird on the planet. There is not one report of an orca ever attacking a human in the wild. Dolphins like to get intoxicated, and they do it by passing around a pufferfish and using its venom. The biggest threat to a porcupine's life is themselves. They like to climb trees, and sometimes they fall and pierce all their quills right through themselves. Under all that fur, polar bears have black skin. It looks like a chupacabra. And the best fact of all, in 2022, the panda status changed from endangered to vulnerable. Go panda!
This is how you spot a skinwalker. On May 6th of 2020, a YouTube channel by the name Gemini Home Entertainment uploaded a survival video. And it was pretty basic, until it started to demonstrate the dangers of nature, calling one specifically an auditory hallucination. You can see someone camping, when all of a sudden they begin recording what seems like a man calling out for help. But if you take a closer look, there's definitely something off about this guy.
Yelling help. Ooh, like a robot. I'm gone. Deuces. Sorry.
To this, the video says, don't approach it. If you hear them, they have already heard you.
Yeah, I'm out. You ain't catching me.
I put the semen in a saran wrap every day, like 5 times a day, for like a month straight.
He would kind of like roll it up, almost like a cigarette, and he would attach it to the line that we had in the vent, and I would pull it through.
This story sounds so made up, but I promise you it's not. These two inmates who have never met each other before were able to conceive a baby through a prison cell air conditioning vent. While Daisy was incarcerated, she began doing what many other inmates do while spending long hours in their cells, and that's communicating with other inmates through the air conditioning vents. Juwan and Daisy began passing photos and notes to each other, and it wasn't long until they began their romantic relationship, all while never seeing each other in person. Juwan told Daisy that he really wanted to have a baby, but he knew that he couldn't do that anytime soon because he was most likely going to be in prison for a long time. He then told Daisy that if he could choose anyone to have a baby with, it would be her. And Daisy, who was so in love with this man, told him that, well, it could be done. Together, they both went about coming up with this crazy plan. This is where things get interesting. Juwan began putting his fluids in saran wrap and rolled it up kind of like a cigarette, and he did this every single day, 5 times a day for about a month. He would then send his fluids wrapped up, attached to a bed sheet that they both made together through the vent. And this isn't even the craziest part, because when Daisy received Juwan's fluids, she transferred it over into a yeast infection applicator. Daisy administered these fluids inside of her daily until she got pregnant.
These are 3 of the most
That's
disturbing
insane.
facial reconstructions I have ever found online. This is number 1. She was found on the 25th of November, 1993, just 30 feet off of a main road. The road was Vance Neck Road, which I believe is in Delaware, but what really freaks me out about this reconstruction is that it's so lifelike. Even so, no one has ever identified her. They don't even know what happened to her. Second one is a John Doe of an unknown child. Originally when he was found, he was so far decomposed they actually couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl's body they were looking at. And what kind of unnerved me about it is that nobody claimed him. There was never anybody in this area who claimed they had a missing child or knew of a missing child, so where did he come from? And the final reconstruction is who they refer to as Maria. She was a Jane Doe found in 1952 by a hunter, and she had most likely been burned alive. Clay reconstruction of her is of course not the best, but it really didn't do much good in helping anyone to find her because it's been 70 years and she is still an unknown woman.
This is a weird fact, you know. Everyone starts out as a female. See, fellas, when you're in the womb, your Y chromosome doesn't show up until 5 to 6 weeks later. So you really don't become a dude until 5 to 6 weeks in your mama's belly. Why do you think we have titties that we never used? So yeah, I hope you have fun knowing that you were a girl once.
Mind blown to think about, man. We all start off as females in the womb. Then the change gradually happens. We all the same.
Teachers have been hiding this website for years, and I'm finally going to tell you what it is. This is Phrasely.ai. This is the only website that fools AI detectors by turning an AI-generated essay into a completely human essay. First, visit their website and type in any sort of essay that you have. You can even use their website to generate you one as well. Once you have the essay pasted, you can look at this little blue button down at the bottom called Humanize, and it will automatically turn your AI-generated essay into a completely human version. Here's the best part. Once you've humanized the essay, you can see at the very bottom it's automatically checked with other third-party websites to ensure that it's completely AI-free and completely plagiarism-free. This is a major game changer, and if I was still in high school, I probably would have used this every single day.
Hit the nail on the head. I'm wonder how many freaking students are getting away with just using AI, man, just turning in work. Not actually having to do the work themselves. They just finessing their way through school and college.
A man received a notification that someone was in his backyard when he sees this. A man from Argentina woke up one morning to an unusual amount of notifications from his backyard's camera. As he looked over the footage, this ominous-looking figure dressed in long white robes can be seen staring at him.
That looks like somebody in a costume. He confronted?
The man believes this entity followed him back home after he tried communicating with spirits at a nearby gravesite. After this entity manifested itself, he explains that many of the neighboring dogs began to weep as if they felt its presence. Could this really be something as sinister as La Llorona captured on camera? Or is this all just an elaborate ruse? I'll let you decide.
There's some dark stuff going on around the world that the public definitely doesn't know about. Up first, humanity has wiped out 60% of the animal population since 1970. Just think about that for a second. 60% of all animal population has been wiped out. This is absolutely crazy, and we use all of these resources for food and clothes and just stuff like that. But when you hear that we killed 60% of the animal population, it kind of makes you think, right? Next up, we all know the mega city that Saudi Arabia is building called Neom. But did you know Saudi Arabia is sentencing people to death who refuse to move out of their homes so they could actually build the mega city Neom? And their relatives are being sentenced to multiple decades of prison time just for protesting and posting their support to the cause on social media. This is absolutely sickening, and I can't believe nobody is talking about this. This next one is going to keep us all up at night. But bacterial resistance to antibiotics is at an alarming level. There has already been instances of pan-antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria. This can throw us back to the pre-antibiotic era, which will effectively mean if you catch an infection, you will die. Just like in the 1400s. Finally, women are going missing from Indian reservations across some of the United States. Many are young women and are probably being used for sex trafficking. I wonder why they're taking Indian women from Indian reservations. And I wonder why sick stuff happens like this on Earth every single day.
Check out
Makes
the
no
terrifying
sense,
moment
man.
a man found the back rooms in real life. This is crazy.
I have no idea where the hell I am. This place is so creepy.
All that empty space. He's definitely in the back rooms.
I'm so glad I didn't bring Jacob or Tommy. This place is just, too weird.
Those chairs? All that open space.
I'm getting out of here.
Oh, those are computers. Okay. We got movement. Went up.
What the heck was that?
Why is no one talking about this mannequin and its creepy backstory? This is La Pascualita. The mannequin has been in the window of this Mexican bridal shop since the 1930s. Now look, mannequins weren't even that detailed back then. Customers noticed that you could see fingernails, eyebrow hairs, and veins on the mannequin. By the way, we're making a Reese's milkshake. Out of all three of these flavor ice creams, which one has to go? Vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry? Comment down below. I want to see if y'all got good taste or not. Now,
Strawberry. Not actually chocolate.
This is where it gets crazy. The owner of the shop had a daughter named Pascuala. And in the 1930s, she was going to get married. So, of course, being the owner of a bridal shop, the owner went all out for her daughter, buying her the best dress and setting up everything. Sadly, a scorpion had gotten the daughter's dress, and she sadly didn't survive the sting. People say the exact next day a mannequin appeared at the front of the shop, and she looked strangely similar to the daughter. Even the dress looked similar. Aw, snap. Look at that. Little sweet baby diabetes. They believe the owner did not want to lose her daughter, so she dipped her in wax to preserve her forever. Do you think this is the shop owner's daughter? And make sure to hit that follow, because tomorrow's story is insane compared to this one.
There were some similarities. Weirder things have happened, man. People
The only
don't know
thing
how to let
scarier
go.
than the Ouija board is how the Ouija board was made. After the Civil War, over 620,000 people died. That's a lot of people. All of these families wanted to communicate with their passed away loved ones, and they decided they needed to figure out a way to do that. So this woman named Helen Peters. Helen Peters created the Ouija board, and she was playing with the board when she asked it, "What does your name want to be?" where the Ouija board spelled out the word Ouija. Well, a few years later, a man comes around and tells Helen Peters that he's willing to buy the entire patent from her. He agrees, but she tells him to be careful. One day the man is on a 3-story building where he falls off and he grabs the window seal with his fingers. The window seal shuts down and breaks his fingers, and he falls all the way to the bottom. He's still alive. The people go, they pick him up, and they put him in the car, and they're transporting him over to get to the nearest hospital. While the car is driving, they hit a bump in the road, and one of his broken ribs pierced his heart. One of Helen Peters' last ever words before she passed away was to be careful of the Ouija board because it lies. Now Hasbro Games basically owns the entire thing, and they sell it inside of kids' stores. This video blows up enough, I'll go buy a real Ouija board and we'll see if it's real. I can follow. It's because of the most...
I don't know how people click those Ouija boards. I never even took the chance, man. And the fact that they sell them in the kids section of the toy stores, I don't think they should be selling that there. That ain't no kid toy, bro. Some dark history behind that. I do not mess with those Ouija boards at all.
Athletically disrespectful creatures on Earth. There's no situation where a cat needs to be doing any of that. You see, leopards had a problem. I'm sorry, Zevi, it's too catchy. They live in Africa, but they don't weaponize the power of friendship like lions or hyenas, or a clan of Cujos, or even baboon mafia. Being a solo dolo hunter, well, you see how that goes for cheetahs. They literally have anxiety, but leopards have something cheetahs don't. The two things, actually. They're the best climbers of any cat, and pound for pound, they're the strongest, and these are cats we're talking about. They're plenty OP already. Basically, you got Teen Titans Robin in the form of a weaponized panther. Huh, that is a rhino. Yeah, that is a giraffe. And being able to climb means they can dodge the same smoke that gets cheetahs cooked. So not only do leopards have the longest grocery list of a big cat with like 90-something animals, they have the widest range of any too. But they're also crafty enough to live right next to people. They will pull up to your front door in some places. And because leopards can and will murk anything, in some places they realize that pet dogs are easy calories. I can't show you this video, but by the grace of God and plot armor, the dog made it. Also, hot take, the most dangerous predator is a predator with predators. And since leopards get got by lions and tigers too, they're much more likely to be on site with people if they feel threatened. So yeah, leopards are a flex and my second favorite big cat. What's the first? The more you know.
This is why you always
Be flexing out there.
Will from Will Whereabouts was camping in the middle of the woods in Box Hill, UK, when suddenly, late at night, he's awoken by what sounds like human voices.
I don't think I'm going to be getting much sleep tonight.
Will explains he was all alone in that site, so what exactly made those sounds?
I don't know, man. Camping alone? I ain't doing that.
Jean Dulac and his evil doll. So in the early 1900s, Jean Dulac was one of the most famous ventriloquists in all of vaudeville. His doll not only looked like it was speaking on its own, but it appeared to move on its own and also had a voice completely different from Jean's. This confused a lot of his fans, but they mostly chalked it up to his talent. But others felt there was something slightly sinister about the doll. Reports that the doll was sometimes caught speaking even when it wasn't on Jean's hand. Missy Waters, a vaudevillian dancer and Jean's lover, claimed that one night she walked into Jean's room to find the doll off of his hand and Jean on the other side of the room curled up in a ball crying. She said a voice was coming from the doll speaking Latin, and it clearly was not Jean. The more Jean used the doll, the sicker he got too, and within a few years of his success, he was on his deathbed. And apparently, right before he died, he asked to make a call to Missy. According to her, on that phone call, Jean said it was the devil inside of the doll. He said that he had bought the doll off a man traveling through town with the understanding that if he let the devil live inside the doll, he would have all the fame and fortune he desired. His last words were, "Do not let anyone have this doll after I die." The whereabouts of the doll are currently unknown.
Sold his soul for freaking fame and fortune? We heard that before.
Killer whales go through menopause and it makes them the best grandmothers in the ocean. So orcas can live for 50, 60, some even reach 80 years, but the female will stop being able to have kids at around 30 to 40. Normally shutting down the baby factory that early would be bad, but the female orcas that can't have kids anymore will then focus on raising their kids' kids. These grandmother orcas will leave their pod, using their decades of experience to teach all the younger ones the best places to find food. And in true grandmother fashion, the killer whales that grow up around this granny orca have a better chance of surviving and having kids of their own. And since the oldest orca was allegedly as old as the Titanic, they can even end up raising their great-grandchildren. By being that old head that we all need in our lives, the grandma sea panda makes sure that her genes keep getting passed down to the next generation by looking after her grandchildren. This grandmother effect is because female orcas that don't have their own children to worry about have more time to focus on teaching and looking after their grandkids. Moral of this video: orcas are homicidal equality symbols that are the biggest bullies in the ocean. But they're also the biggest grandmama's boys on the planet. That is the most wholesome thing I can ever say about them.
Really? I never knew that about orcas.
Hey, sit. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah.
What is that?
Dia masuk dalam kolam ni. Dia masuk dalam kolam.
Looked like it was a torch or something. I don't know if somebody was in there following him.
These inmates conceived a baby in their jail cells by transferring his fluids, if you know what I mean, through the AC vent. I'm still shocked at the fact that this actually worked, but if you want to know the full details of this case, go to my YouTube channel. I just uploaded a video on it. In 2022, Daisy Link was arrested and charged for her boyfriend's murder. And in that same year, Joanne DePaz was also arrested and charged for murder. While they spent time in jail, they got to know each other by talking through the AC vents in their cells. For those who did not know this, inmates are actually able to communicate with each other through their AC vents in their cells. So what they do is they stand on top of their toilets and knock on their AC vents and communicate with other people in different levels of the facility. With that being said, their cells were connected and they got to know each other, build this relationship, and ended up having a baby. Let's just say that these two never touched each other, never met in person, they didn't even know what they looked like. You're probably wondering, how the hell did this happen? Well, Joanne came up with this crazy plan to transfer his body fluids to his jail girlfriend through the AC vent. The process of actually getting this done was crazy, but they were successful and they had a baby girl. Now, Joanne and Daisy are so proud of what they did. You can go check out their interviews on my video. They love the attention. But what really upsets me is how selfish these two are, because let's not forget, they're in there for murder. So they're going to be in prison for a very long time, if not forever. And now this little girl has to potentially grow up without not just one, but both of her parents.
I passed away trying to put
Something I
a TV
didn't think
in my
about before.
stomach. My name is Poe. I am one of the Teletubbies. Before all the sunshine and happiness, there was darkness and loneliness. We were 4 children, stuck living in a Bulgarian mental facility they called La La Land, where psychotic children were secretly being experimented on. They isolated the 4 of us into our own dark rooms. La La, the yellow Teletubby, was a child with a facial disfigurement, making her face stuck in a smile. Dipsy, the green tabby, was a malnourished child that was constantly sick. Tinky Winky, the purple tabby, was a deaf child who got tied to a fence and suffered frostbite. And me, Poe, I fell into a fire when I was young. Our only source of comfort in our facility was the little television in our rooms. But as part of an experiment, they told us they were going to take them away. We couldn't bear losing them, so we came up with the idea to try and hide them in our stomach. But they were too big to swallow, so we attempted to cut a pathway for them in our stomach and put the television inside, which costed us our life.
Just when I thought I heard about all the worst cults in history, this one had to come and blow them out of the water. This is Colonia Dignidad. They were a German torture cult hiding out in the Chilean wilderness after World War II, aka Yazis. And to show you how terrible they were, let me tell you a story. That's a quick reminder, if you want more info, you can check out the podcast. The leader of this cult was a known child abuser, and he wanted more Chilean boys to be brought to him. So he started a hospital in the community and used it as a trafficking system to get more children. One day, a young Chilean boy choked and was rushed to the hospital. And right when he got there, a nurse scooped him up, brought him to a room, and saved his life. But later that day, his sister arrived and asked a nurse when she could pick him up to take him home. And the nurse responded that they needed to monitor him for a few more days, which is pretty suspect in a choking case. So a few days later, she comes back and she's like, okay, can I get my brother? and the nurse tells her that he's not there anymore. And this is because the hospital had lawyers on staff that were drafting up adoption paperwork when young boys would come in. The cult was able to legally adopt boys in the community without the parents' consent, and the parents had not enough money to do anything about it. There are so many more stories about this place, and I had never heard of it before, so make sure you check out this week's episode for more info.
Horror movies. Why is that even allowed?
Haunt your nightmares. Part 2. Coraline. The soundtrack in the movie is a French children choir singing. Surprisingly, they aren't actually singing in French. They're singing in a completely made-up language. If you look on the wall of the dining room in the other mother's home, you'll see 3 portraits of silhouettes. These likely represent the 3 ghost children that appear later in the film. In the normal world, the boy is sad and has dropped his ice cream. But in the other world, he's happy and his ice cream is perfect. On the back of the chair above where Coraline's doll sits features a small flower-shaped pattern. And this flower is almost exactly like the one on the back of Jack Torrance's chair in The Shining. The Welcome Home cake features a double loop on the O. And according to Graphology, a double loop on the lowercase o means that the person who wrote it is not telling the truth. But on the cake, there is actually only one double loop, meaning that Coraline is welcome, but she is not home.
Coraline as a kid,
Let's save your life. A 17-year-old boy was on his way home from the gym and decided to take the bus. The boy unfortunately missed the first bus, so he had to wait for the second one, and it was getting pretty late. The boy was just hanging out in that little bus shelter until a man with thick clothing started walking awkwardly towards him. The boy felt pretty creeped out, but decided to just focus on his phone and hope he would walk away. But then the man took a seat right next to the boy and reached his arm out to grab him. The boy grabbed his backpack and ran as fast as he could to the next stop. He thought he was safe until he saw that same man's face pressed up against the window of the bus shelter. The deranged man lunged at him again but missed and fell to the floor. There was blood pouring out of his face and the boy called 911. The cops explained to the boy that the man was on prescription drugs. And upon looking through the man's wallet, they found a picture of the man's son which looked just like the boy.
Be careful at them bus stops, man. The weirdos out there.
If you're alone right now, don't watch this video. In the winter of 2018, a man who was living alone in the mountains wakes up to find a red ball sitting on his front yard. He assumed the only neighbor he had must have kids, and so he kicks the ball over the fence, goes inside, doesn't think anything of it. That night, he wakes up to the sound of kids laughing outside of his window. He goes outside to check on them because it's the middle of the night, and there's no kids anywhere, but that red ball is back on his property. So he picks it up, brings it in his house, and goes back to bed. The next morning, he goes over to his neighbor's house to let them know that their kids were out in his yard in the middle of the night. But it turns out his neighbor is just some old man who lives alone, and there aren't any kids anywhere in the area. That night, he wakes up again to the sound of kids on his property, and when he looks outside, there's no kids, but that red ball is back on his property. Panicked, he runs downstairs to make sure the one he brought in is still inside, and it's gone. He checked every window and door, and everything was still locked. It didn't make any sense. He decides to look out the window one more time, and off in the distance is some weird, stiff figure watching him.
Is he hallucinating?
This is one of the world's most haunted dolls, Okiku. Said to be so haunted that if you even glance at this doll, you could become cursed. Now, the story surrounding this doll is actually terrifying. Back in the 1918s, Okiku was purchased in Japan for a man's younger sister. Tragically, after a year of owning this doll, the little girl passed away from the flu. The family then decided to create a shrine for her, placing the large doll inside of it as a display. Now, originally, this doll had a short bob-cut haircut. And only a few weeks after being placed inside of the shrine, the doll's hair grew, way past her shoulders. And in the 1930s, the family moved away. The doll was then given to a museum, where her hair continues to grow to this day. Up next is a doll named Lily. It was made in the 1980s with real human hair. After seeing a Facebook post, Zach Bagans decided he wanted to try out this doll and see what it was all about. Terrifying thing is the last person that did this had massive nightmares and ended up getting into a tragic accident. It's also said that this doll talks, not in a normal sweet doll voice, in a very deep and demonic tone. Now this doll, Lily, currently resides at the Zach Bagans Museum, which is probably a good thing because most people probably shouldn't be around this doll, due to the fact that it's made with human hair. It's caused mass tragedies, on top of it being so haunted that it can literally manipulate your nightmares. I'm good on all the dolls.
This is why you should always keep your phone charged. A girl named Marissa came home from school at around 3 p.m. She walked in the door and told her mom that some random number kept calling her all day. Her mom told her the person may have the wrong number and just to ignore it. Marissa said okay and begins to do her homework. A couple hours later, she receives a phone call from the same number. Marissa answers it this time and says,
Hello? The man then says, "We finally found you. Don't worry, Bunny." Marissa begins to panic and tells her mom what just happened. Her mom's face goes blank and says, "What did the man just call you?" Marissa says, "He called me Bunny." Her mom yells and says, "Grab your stuff, we need to leave." Marissa, confused, packs her things and gets into the red car. Her mom begins driving fast and turns on the radio. The radio says, "The baby named Marissa who was kidnapped in the hospital 10 years ago has been found and police are searching for a red car." Marissa looks at the woman and says, "Who are you?" The woman looks back and says, "You can call me Mommy."
So she was kidnapped as a kid. And then she tried to take her on the run. Okay. It's a good thing, like you said. That's why you always better keep your phone
Crazy
charged.
history you were not taught in school. Deep within the Earth lies the remains of a planet that crashed into us billions of years ago. Muammar Gaddafi submitted a proposal to the UN suggesting that Switzerland be merged into Germany, Italy, and France. A shipwreck from 1773 was found just 7 feet under the World Trade Center's foundation during the cleanup aftermath of 9/11. Genghis Khan caused so much devastation that the vegetation regrowth from the lands he conquered led to a notable decrease in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This man ran a mile in under 4 minutes during a time where it was believed if you did that, your heart would explode. But now today, thousands of people have done it. George Washington's favorite food was hoe cakes, which was a type of pancake that was made out of cornbread. Alexander the Great conquered the known world, but never attempted to attack Sparta. Actual knights fought in World War I. Napoleon never exhibited any signs of PTSD despite being engaged in warfare for over 2 decades.
With today being St.
Oh, so that means he was about it, bro. Or 2 decades and no signs of PTSD? I guess Napoleon loved being in the trenches, bro.
Tuesday, here's 3 ways to survive a leprechaun from the Leprechaun movies. Number 1, don't go anywhere near his gold. It sounds easy, I know, but my boy is obsessed with gold, and he'll do absolutely anything to get it, including unaliving you. So if for some reason you see a massive pot of gold on the side of the road, just keep driving. Don't even look at it for too long, because if he assumes that you're going to try and steal his gold, you're cooked. Number 2, if you see a rainbow, do not follow it, because what's at the end of a rainbow? A massive pot of gold. And who's also following that rainbow trying to get that massive bag, that massive pot of gold? The leprechaun. So if you follow that rainbow, you're going to run directly into him. Yeah, he's small, but he also has magical powers, and as I said before, we'll do absolutely anything to get his gold. And number 3, for some reason if you don't listen to any of my other rules, just listen to this. If you have a 4-leaf clover, it will completely take over his body and not allow him to then use his magical power. That is the only thing that can save you from the leprechaun. Yes, he's small, and probably pretty slow because his legs are small. But if you don't have a 4-leaf clover, his magical powers can hit you if you're running. So the only way to really defeat the leprechaun is by having a 4-leaf clover. But to be honest, I don't know why you would go out of your way to even outsource the leprechaun and try to go one-on-one against him anyway. Like and follow for more.
They're cooked if you don't have it.
Part 471. A 71-year-old man from Africa has lived in total isolation for 55 years to stay away from women. At the age of 16, he locked himself into a home secured by a 15-foot fence to avoid any possible interactions with females. He reportedly suffers from gynophobia, an irrational fear of women. A 26-year-old monk from the UK has died after traveling to Turkey for a Brazilian butt lift. The official cause of death was a fat embolism after some of the injected fat apparently entered her bloodstream. Many health professionals consider BBLs to be barbaric procedures because of the significant health risks associated with them that are seldom discussed. In July of 1518, a French woman ran from her house and started dancing fervently in the street. Within a week, a few dozen others had joined her, and by the next month, hundreds fell victim to this dancing plague. They danced completely uncontrollably and seemingly without reason, often for days on end, until they collapsed from exhaustion or even died from heart attacks or strokes. Up to 400 people in total died before the phenomenon suddenly stopped. It's widely believed that the dancing plague was caused by stress-induced hysteria or poisoning from a wheat fungus called ergot.
The longest things in the world. Longest English word. Pneumona ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. Longest YouTube video, 596 hours. Longest song, Rise and Fall of Bossa Nova, 13 hours long. Longest film, Logistics, over 35 days long. Longest day of 2021, Monday the 21st of June.
If you're ever attacked by a chimpanzee, here's what you need to do to survive. Rule number 1, remember that you're probably gonna die. You see, chimps share around 98% of human DNA, meaning that they're very smart but also more aggressive. They're like humans but with less empathy, and we barely have any to begin with. Chimps are reportedly 2 to 4 times stronger than humans and look like you would if you had stuck to your New Year's resolution. And now for some actual advice. Rule number 1, do not punch them. Chimps are so aggressive that they love to attack and tear off human faces, hands, and genitals. So unless you want to get your hands torn off like Captain Hook, try throwing an object or kicking if you can. But that probably won't work anyway, and your best bet is swimming away. Chimps have super low body fat, so they're pretty bad at swimming. So you better Michael Phelps your way out of there, and if you can't find a nearby river, make sure you tell Iron Man that I say hi.
Okay. Stay away from chimps, man.
Crazy
Expert
things
level.
happening in the world right now. Chick-fil-A is the #1 preferred first date spot for American men according to a new survey. The top 5 spots are all actually fast food. The same survey said that 66% of women would prefer having a first date at a McDonald's. Doctors are now warning to not sit on the toilet for longer than 10 minutes. 5 of the top firms in the Plastic Pollution Alliance made 1,000 times more plastic than they cleaned up. A new AI tool was built to sound like an elderly grandmother to waste the time of phone scammers. Salesforce is hiring 1,000 salespeople to sell AI tools that replace salespeople. The first known emperor penguin to reach Australia was found on a beach. A woman married a man who had forgotten they had broken up after he had gotten a concussion. Yale is now teaching a class on Beyonce's political and cultural impact. A sick man was brought to a bank on his hospital bed to confirm his identity. 2 drug dealers are in jail for 12 years after losing their bag of drugs on a train and then reporting it missing.
Let's talk.
I want to talk about those freaking date facts, man. I did not know they said for the most #1 spot for American men was Chick-fil-A, but that other one was Cap talking about how same woman will want their first date at freaking McDonald's. I haven't met one yet. It's like, yeah, a first date, first link up, we can chill at Mickey D's. Put me on, bro.
About this picture. Now, the picture was captured by Daniel Hill, who was the custodian at Driftville Elementary. If you look to the back of the photo, you can already kind of spot that something is very off. What the custodian had thought was maybe a student who had stayed after school and was trying to prank him in the dark turned out to be something much worse. Daniel Hill was attacked in that hallway and did not survive the attack, with his body being found the following morning by a student. It is described to be found on the floor with lacerations so severe he no longer had eyes and his nose was missing. So police eventually turned back to the final photo that was taken on his phone to try to enhance it to figure out who would have done this. This was about the clearest version that they could make of that photo, and the man seen here was never found, and his motive towards Daniel was never known.
I look like a damn monster.
The brutal attack of Travis the chimp.
The chimp killed my friend! And the police come! With a gun! With a gun! Please hurry up! He's killing my girlfriend!
Who's killing your friend?
Chimp, my chimpanzee!
Oh, your chimpanzee is killing your friend.
She's dead. He ripped her apart.
He ripped what apart? Her face?
Everything. Shoot him! Shoot him!
Travis was a 200-pound male chimpanzee that appeared in many movies and TV shows. But on February 16th, 2009, Travis finally snapped. The woman that you heard on the phone was Sandra Harold, the chimp's owner. And the woman being attacked was Charla Nash, one of Sandra's friends. Sandra tried to save her friend by bashing the chimp with a shovel and stabbing him in the back with a butcher knife, but that only made him more angry. Travis ripped off Charla's eyelids and tore off her nose. The chimp then scalped her, gouged out, and ate her eyeballs before chewing off her hand. Shortly after, the police showed up and executed Travis by gunfire.
That's insane, man. People need to stop keeping wild animals as pets. It never ends well, man, from these clips I've watched together with you guys.
Remember that time a man-eating camel terrorized a town in Arizona? Crazy, right? It was a villain out of courage to cowardly dog, and it started with the government. You see, they realized the hump jockey's a way better desert option than horses, and when the U.S. was trying to make like Bianca Censori and head west, well, that started the Camel Corps, where America thought it was a good idea to weaponize the dromedary variety. It got abandoned, and the camels were auctioned off. Some ended up in zoos, and some were straight up roughing it in the American Southwest. The story goes one day in 1883, a mysterious beast murked a rancher's wife, and eyewitness described it as a giant, tall, red-looking beast with a demon riding shotgun. Speaking of shotgun, after several sightings and one incident where it nearly erased a cowboy that had lassoed it, they decided it was time to bear arms before things got grisly. 5 men took a shot and none of them hit, but by the pure power of plot armor, one of them managed to knock something off. But when they went to investigate, it was a skull. A fresh human skull that still had some hair on it. For the next several years, there were stories of this homicidal red quadruped hoovering a headless demon attacking people, which actually is a Courage episode now that I think about it. The story spread until one day farmer Mizzou Hastings looked outside and saw the steed of Satan eating out of his yard. He one-shot it and realized not only was this mysterious beast one of the leftover camels from the failed Camel Corps, there was a life-deprived former human strapped to the camel, so tight that it actually scarred the body. To this day, we have no clue how that man past tense what he was doing to get stuck there, or how long the camel was carrying a decapitated, decomposing was on his back, but some say it could have been up to a decade. The more you know, ain't you glad you asked?
These are scary
10
urban
years?
legends in each state, part 4. Up first is La Mala Ora. La Mala Ora is located in New Mexico and is a very scary and dangerous demonic spirit. She walks around lonely roads after midnight and terrorizes those who travel alone. People who have seen her say she appears as a large black lump, constantly moving and changing shape. But the scariest part about La Mala Ora is that anyone who lays eyes on her will be driven completely insane. She tries to hypnotize and paralyze anyone who encounters her. Some people even believe the devil himself is scared of La Mala Ora. People who live in New Mexico also say that she really never appears in human form. But if she does, it means somebody you know or yourself is going to die soon. So if you live in New Mexico, I feel bad for you.
Stay away from the model or I'll avoid that in New Mexico.
Part 441. While working in his garage in 2012, Chicago man Dante Autolo accidentally shot a 3-inch nail directly into his skull. But he had no idea the nail had entered his brain until he started feeling nauseous 36 hours later, and a dozen doctors were completely stunned when they saw his x-rays. The nail was surgically removed, and Dante miraculously made a full recovery. After his meth-addicted wife spread a false rumor that he was a pedophile, Australian father Bradley Lyons was kidnapped and attacked by a vigilante group of pedophile hunters. He was tortured with lighters and knuckle dusters and threatened with a shotgun in his mouth for not confessing to his crimes. At some point, the group poured hot water over Bradley's head and cut off his hand with a chainsaw since he continued to deny the false allegations. They then left him in the trunk of a hot car for 21 hours before executing him in the woods. Several people were sentenced to years in prison for the horrific murder, including Bradley's wife.
Man, nigga, that's some dark story. Goes to show the extent of lives, dude.
It's really not looking good for him, is it? Mr. Diddler, we all know him. He was in the headlines massively a few months ago when all of the stuff was breaking out. We had all the logs leaked of the alleged celebrities that were attending these parties, along with many other things happening. Now though, you probably know this guy, Luigi Mangione, who has been a massive talking point for the last few weeks. I'm sure everybody knows what he did, and there's been a lot of divides on social media, so a lot of people supporting him, a lot of people not supporting him, obviously. But Diddy, he's not happy, you see. He's really not happy. He said, and I quote, "It's not fair I'm getting so much hate while in the lockup, while Luigi is getting a load of love and praise." I'm sorry. Essentially, he said that he is innocent, there's a lot of people that know he's innocent, so why isn't he getting a load of love and attention while inside? But he gets crazy, he said he is literally raging at this, so he's really not happy, as far as actually throwing temper tantrums in the jail because he's getting a lot of attention. I don't even know what to say, to be honest, but yeah, know your thoughts, and as always, I'll keep you updated.
Who cares if you're getting more attention, man? Y'all both in jail. Doesn't make a difference anyway. The outcome's gonna be the same. Diddy worried about the wrong things, man.
Well, this country is not Egypt. It's Iran.
Hello, my friend. I wouldn't say Iran is the oldest country in the world, but that itself is quite a strange claim to make. What do we mean when we say the oldest country? Is it when the modern concept of a nation-state was established? Is it the length in time a political identity has held power over a region? Or is it simply how long a region has maintained a certain name? The oldest country is usually determined based on one of these interpretations. For example, some argue that Egypt, with its ancient civilizations dating back over 5,000 years, is the oldest. However, this is based on the continuity of the region's historical identity rather than its modern statehood. Others point to China, citing the unbroken lineage of dynasties and cultural continuity. Yet again, this reflects a cultural or civilizational perspective rather than a political one. When it comes to the idea of modern nation-states, countries like France and England, which established centralized governments and national identities in the medieval period, often enter the discussion. As for Iran, its claim stems from the Achaemenid Empire founded by Cyrus the Great in 550 BC, I think. The region's cultural and political identity has remained remarkably consistent over those many centuries, surviving invasions, dynastic changes, and modern shifts. But the truth is, defining the oldest country depends entirely on how we interpret history. Is it the continuity of culture, the endurance of a name, or the longevity of a political system? Each perspective brings its own answer to the question.
Clip circulating on social media, I just couldn't believe it. Here you have a man who's now known to be one of the most prolific sexual predators in Hollywood, discussing what seems to be a how-to guide on how to groom a child on national television. I know that people are going to say, oh, it was a different time and blah, 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 this was more acceptable. But I don't think that this ever should have been acceptable. I mean, I can't remember a single television show that I watched that had any sort of content that reflected a value like the one that's being presented here in this clip. Especially coming from the mouth of a guy like Bill Cosby. It's kind of like Jeffrey Epstein giving you dating advice. But I'm just going to play the rest of the clip for you now. This is just really disturbing.
A hero nun who risks her own life saving orphan children from being exploited. Final Vow is one of those movies that is going to leave you at the edge of your seat. Sister Anne Marie works at an orphanage in Mexico, and one day out of the blue, a 15-year-old girl gets adopted. She immediately becomes suspicious, and she is convinced that the couple that adopted the young girl is going to do something sinister. Her suspicions are correct, and she will stop at nothing to make sure that that young girl is saved along with many others. Final Vow shows the scary reality of what is going on in this world and how easily vulnerable children can be sold and exploited. On the film's website, there is an AI feature, and you can chat with the cast to answer any kind of questions you may have and learn more about the film. If you're like me and always has a bunch of unanswered questions, then this feature is going to be really fun for you. Make sure to check out Final Vow on https://finalvow.com, and once you watch it, comment down below and let me know what you think.
Light years, because this shit blows my mind. In simple terms, a light year is the distance light travels in 1 year. But let me show you some examples of why I think the whole concept of light years is insane. Recently, the Hubble telescope captured a supernova exploding in a distant galaxy that's 70 million light years away. So this means that this explosion happened 70 million years ago and we are just now seeing it. Let me give you another example. If you were on a planet that was 65 million light years away from Earth, and somehow had a big enough telescope pointed directly at Earth, through that telescope you would theoretically see dinosaurs roaming the Earth because dinosaurs were around 65 million years ago. If your mind isn't blown enough already, listen to this. Light takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel from the sun to the Earth. That means that if for some reason the sun just disappeared, we wouldn't even know until 8 minutes and 20 seconds later.
Scary to think about, man.
Strange facts that will blow your mind. Apples in the supermarket can be up to 1 year old. An octopus has 3 hearts. A cloud can weigh over 1 million pounds. Sneezes travel at about 100 miles.
This 18-year-old planned the murder of a woman he just met on Tinder. On May 12, 2022, 18-year-old Kane Fairbank met with a woman at Mueller Park in Bountiful, Utah, after meeting a few days earlier on Tinder. Kane and the woman were there for several hours, but just before 6:30 p.m., he lured her into his car and he stabbed her multiple times to her face, neck, and hands. The victim fought back and was able to break away and flag down a nearby witness. But Kane wasn't done there. He drove off to a gas station, parked his car, and abandoned his vehicle, and then he saw a 64-year-old woman walking on the street and began to stab her as well. She fought back and Kane fled again, but he was later caught by a Good Samaritan and was held down until police arrived. He told police that he invited the first victim to the park with the intent of luring her into his car and killing her. Kane later admitted that he was planning to continue to kill people after he was finished with his first victim. He even talked about his plan to killing his family with a pickaxe. Kane was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of obstruction of justice, and a count of aggravated kidnapping. So after hearing about this case, you guys let me know if you're still going to be using dating apps.
No, thank you. I'm good off that.
Men who have bigger noses have been also found to have longer penises, a recent study suggests. The study looked at the corpses of 126 men within 3 days of death and measured a range of body parts. The length of the men's noses correlated to the size of the penis. And although there was a correlation between nose and penis size, they did not find a reason as to why this might be. So the question is, how big is your nose?
That's a very weird fact.
Here are 7 mind-boggling facts I can guarantee you didn't know. And if you did, I'll give you a cookie. First up, Facebook's like button was going to be called the awesome button. Because the Statue of Liberty is made of copper, when it was first constructed, it used to be the color of a coin. Basically this. However, due to oxidation in 1920, it turned completely green and stayed it. The Eiffel Tower was originally intended to be in Barcelona. However, because the people of Barcelona didn't like the project idea, they moved it to France. I know I've said it before, but just because I love this fact so much, all blue-eyed people are related, sharing one common ancestor known as the founder. Up next, you know the stickers that are placed on fruits? Well, it turns out these stickers are actually edible. Cool. Why? The United Kingdom has more tornadoes per area than any other country in the world. Cool fact, but since when? And this last one might hurt your brain. 1 glass of water has more atoms in it than there are glasses of water in all of the oceans of the earth. My brain. Elon!
That has to be cap, right? Last fact has to be more atoms in a glass of water than there is in the whole entire ocean. Yeah, we'll have to do our research on that one.
The actor who played Jonathan Redcorn on King of the Hill and Ken Hotate on Parks and Rec was just murdered in a crime. This is Jonathan Joss. He was a well-known actor in Hollywood, and I definitely remember him from all the incredible roles that he had over the years. I especially remember him on the show Parks and Rec. He was incredibly funny when he was on that show. So according to Jonathan's husband, Tristan Gonzalez, the two of them had been harassed and discriminated against for years in their San Antonio neighborhood. And according to Jonathan's husband, somebody actually burned their house down after 2 years of repeated threats and harassment, which is disturbing enough to me. But even more disturbing is the fact that on Sunday of last weekend, when Tristan and Jonathan went back to the site of their former home, which had been burned to the ground, they discovered the skull of one of their dogs who had been missing and the dog's harness placed in clear view in front of the home. And according to Tristan, the two of them then began to cry out in pain and distress. That's when they were allegedly approached by this man, named Sigfrido Alvarez Sija, who, according to Tristan, then began shouting before suddenly raising a gun and opening fire. Unfortunately, Jonathan would suffer multiple gunshot wounds and die at the scene. And sadly, it was reported that he recently attended a King of the Hill panel in Austin, Texas, but as a member of the audience. And he had publicly expressed how he felt disappointed that he was left out of the public panel. They hadn't invited him to join them on stage. This was just last Friday, too. This is a horrible situation. The San Antonio Police Department is denying that this was some sort of a hate crime. But as soon as we know more about this case, I will be sure to provide you guys with updates.
Here's some maps that are going to change the way you see the world. All 38 states in blue on this map have a smaller population than all of Long Island, which you can see there really small is the red. This map proves that Greenland extends farther north, east, south, and west than Iceland. This map reveals the air traffic that was over Paris during the 2024 Olympics, which was non-existent. This map shows how distorted the Mercator projection really is by giving us a 5,000 kilometer radius around Paris. Obviously, it doesn't look certain. The line through Africa is longer than the line through Russia. This map shows the access that all of Africa has to electricity, with some places in the darkest green being 99%, basically everybody, and then some places in the lightest green being as low as 1%. Apparently, you can drive almost 150 hours through all of Russia and still be in Russia. This pinpoint in China is the furthest possible point on land away from any ocean.
Jeffrey Dahmer targeted this 14-year-old boy. The police found him naked, bleeding from his rectum and everything, and Jeffrey Dahmer convinced the police to return him. He told the police that was his boyfriend. They had an argument. Police returned him to Dahmer, and then he got mutilated that night and killed. His name was Konrad Simpthasaphone. And like I said, he was found naked, drugged, and bleeding from his rectum on a street corner, and police returned him to Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, dude, if you're seeing blood on somebody, maybe investigate, ask some more questions. His death was also absolutely horrific. He had a hole drilled into his head, and then Jeffrey Dahmer poured acid inside of it to try to recreate a real-life zombie out of him. He was trying to melt the kid's brains out. I think if the kid acted out and got arrested by police, he would have had a better chance to live. This is just so crazy that you would see the kid in this condition and decide to return him to, like, the person that's claiming to be his boyfriend. Hell, even if it was his boyfriend, right? Just look at the situation he's in, dude. Just investigate more. There's obviously some sort of abuse going on here. But it is sickening how much Jeffrey Dahmer actually got away with. This is just one of his many sick and twisted ways that he killed people. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
That was just madness, man. Like he said, could have checked up on him.
Did someone try to take you from mommy? Yeah. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I got him back, and then he just stared at me, and then goes, oh, I just wanted to get him out of your lap so you could get up and help me. Which was weird. That didn't make any sense.
So it turns out that this mother lied about everything. She claimed this man tried to kidnap her 2-year-old son at Walmart. He was arrested and put in jail. So basically on March 18th, Mahendra Patel went to Walmart to get some Tylenol. He couldn't find the aisle, so he approached this woman named Caroline Miller and asked for help. But after their interaction, she called police and claimed that he tried to kidnap her 2-year-old son and then he fled. The surveillance footage shows zero proof of that, but yet 3 days later, police went to his house and arrested him. Mahendra was charged with attempted kidnapping, assault, battery, and was held without bond. When the surveillance footage was released to the public, everyone was really upset that this innocent man was put in jail for something he clearly didn't do. He was finally granted a $10,000 bond and was released after 49 days. This woman, I don't know what her intentions were or what the point of this really was, but she has not been charged at the moment, but I really hope that she has some serious consequences, because to try to ruin someone's life for absolutely no reason is crazy. Also, why wasn't the surveillance footage reviewed before arresting this man?
I
felt like,
bro, how could the evidence was literally in 4K and he still had to pay $10,000 to get out of jail? That literally makes no sense. She was the one who was capping, lying. So why does he have to pay the price?
I did all this work for nothing.
Kira is a victim of child sex abuse. She's waived her anonymity to speak to the BBC. She says in 2015, when she was just 9, Lancashire police lost her video evidence.
It was hard because I sat there for hours and hours telling people what had happened to me, and for that to be lost, I just thought, like, what's the point in doing it again? Because they did want me to do it again, but I just couldn't go through with it at that time.
It meant her case was delayed for 9 years until she was ready to give evidence again. Her perpetrators were jailed last year. Lancashire police have apologised and say better processes are now in place. But data obtained by the BBC shows that over 4 years, more than 30,000 prosecutions have collapsed because of missing evidence, things like DNA and interviews. This includes 70 homicides and 554 sexual offences. Police chiefs say the new figures refer to evidence missing or unavailable when a defendant is going on trial following being charged. For example, police may not be able to find an expert witness, or a required medical statement cannot be obtained. It says when there are issues, the CPS will raise this with police for any action deemed necessary, and we will work together to ensure these are resolved if possible.
That's crazy, man. They miss doing that to that.
Vermont is incredibly disturbing. So this is the MAP camp, or Minor Attracted Persons Camp, which is the name used to escape the stigma. So last year, somebody in Vermont discovered this event page online, and what they found was absolutely disturbing. Apparently, this camp from September 19th through September 22nd of 2024, and they wouldn't reveal where they were camping. But this was a huge group of pedophiles camping alone in the woods, and some people said that this was happening in near proximity to a school. So on their website, they listed potential risks. They're talking about normal camping risks here, but then they said exposure to, and also common risks with hiking and other outdoor activities. This is from their actual website. Blisters, getting lost, insect bites and stings, heat exhaustion, falling, tripping because you were distracted by a sexy minor instead of watching where you were going. No sexy children around to look at, a common problem when hiking. So obviously nobody would want this event near their hometown, especially near a school, and this turned into an entire storm in this small town in Vermont. They held community meetings with leaders from their town. Campgrounds denied that they allowed these people to camp out there, but according to this group, or from what we could find online, it did happen, and it might happen again next year. And this just goes to show that the normalization of this stuff is never okay. In my opinion, especially the ones that actually harm kids. If you want to hear me rant more about stuff like this, listen to my podcast, The Conspiracy Files, which is available on all streaming platforms, or you can watch the video version of my show on YouTube. And I cover...
Did you guys know that Brittany Drexler's body has been found after 13 years? On April 25th, 2009, 17-year-old Brittany Drexel went missing while visiting Myrtle Beach for spring break with some friends. Brittany lived in New York, and her mother didn't give her permission to travel to Myrtle Beach because she feared something would happen to her. But Brittany went anyway. Later that day, on the 25th, Brittany walked to her friend's hotel that was a few miles away, but as she made her way back, she suddenly disappeared. The last message that she sent to her boyfriend John, who was in New York, was at 8:58 p.m. and when she stopped responding, he contacted Brittany's mother. 62-year-old sex offender Raymond Moody became a person of interest, but he was never charged until now. It wasn't until recently that detectives developed information they needed to make an arrest, and that's when he finally confessed and led investigators to the woods where he buried Brittany. 13 years later, on May 11th, 2022, Brittany's remains were found in a wooded area in Georgetown, South Carolina. Raymond kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered Brittany the same day she went missing. He is now eligible for the death sentence, and he was charged with murder, kidnapping, and criminal sexual misconduct.
That's just sad, man. The mom knew, she felt it. And then so... Where is he walking to? It got pitch black out of nowhere. I'm out.
This journalist was essayed by over 200 men right after the camera battery died.
Been waiting for. They came here day after day. This is about freedom. Stop!
Laura Logan was a well-known journalist for CBS News. On February 11th of 2011, Laura and her CBS crew were in Egypt because at the time the president Hosni Mubarak was resigning. Laura was covering the celebrations in Tahrir Square because a lot of people were celebrating, chanting, and just happy that they had their freedom. As Laura and her crew were filming it all, suddenly the camera battery died, and that's when things started to change. Men started to gather around Laura, and suddenly she was separated from her CBS crew. Next thing she knows, she's being surrounded by 200 and 300 men and is being essayed by flagpoles and sticks for 25 minutes. She tore off her clothes and started to take photos with her cell phones. Laura's body was being pulled in different directions, and when they were pulling her hair, it was coming out in chunks. She was dragged towards a fence where a group of women were camping. They saw her and were able to pull her out and save her. A group of soldiers saw what was going on, so they started hitting the men with their batons, and luckily Laura survived. Once Laura arrived back to the United States, she was kept in the hospital for 4 days. Since they didn't know the identity of these men because there were so many of them, they weren't able to prosecute any of them. Despite how traumatic this was for Laura, she decided to come forward with her story so that maybe it could help other victims in the same situation. Although the memory will never disappear, she says she is proud for breaking the silence of what some female journalists experienced but never told.
She fell in love with her daughter and married her. This is Stephanie from Oklahoma, and I wasn't even looking for this story. I was researching something else, and I came across this, and I was like, clicking that link. So Stephanie lost custody of her kids when they were younger, and their paternal grandmother took over. Later, she got back into her kids' life, and then she says her and her daughter just hit it off. And this was after she married her son in 2008 and then got annulled in 2010. She said that wasn't a actual, with an S, relationship. She just married him to get him out of the military. Don't understand how this works, but that's what she said. Now this son right here says he tried that mess with her, but he wasn't going for it. He denied her advances. DHS got involved. She was 44 here and she was 26, so I don't understand how this worked with the DHS. I don't know if there was a child in the home or what, but DHS got involved and they were charged with sex. They are now divorced. Well, the marriage has been annulled. Oh, and the mother said she feel like she didn't do nothing wrong because her name wasn't on her.
On the evening of September 17th, 2021, a 42-year-old preacher named Jason Thornburg was cleaning up his motel room in Texas. Jason was going to be hosting a small Bible study group in his motel room. Normally, Jason would host these Bible study groups at his house, but unfortunately, Jason's house burned down and he lost everything. And right as he was about to start placing these Bibles on each chair, he heard a knock at the door. And standing outside the door was David Luaris. However, David told Jason that the reason he was here was actually not for the Bible study group. He was here because he was in the middle of a crisis. He confessed to Jason that he had begun using drugs, and now his concern was those dangerous people were coming to get him. Jason decided, okay, you know what, maybe I'll just begin the Bible study with David. And when he began to notice it was getting dark outside, he sort of began wrapping it up. David looked at Jason and begged him to please let him stay overnight. Jason said, okay, you can stay. They said goodnight, they each climbed into their beds and fell asleep. For the next 5 days, Jason's motel room remained mostly closed, and the only thing anybody heard coming from his room was gospel music, and it was being played at a very high volume. And so over the course of these 5 days, the music kept on blasting. The only other thing of note that happened in this period of time was that these 2 other people entered Jason's motel room and didn't leave either. And then on the 5th day, the morning of September 22nd, a single person walked out of Jason's motel room, and they were wearing a full-body hazmat suit and carrying some sort of luggage. 45 minutes later, about 25 miles away from that motel, the Fort Worth Fire Department got a call about this raging dumpster fire. What they saw caused them all to back up and call the police. It would turn out, shortly after he and Jason wrapped up that Bible study that night, David did fall asleep pretty quickly, but Jason didn't. Jason waited until David was asleep, and then Jason got a knife and then slit David's throat. Then he cut David's heart out and ate it, because Jason the preacher really actually believed that human sacrifice was the best and purest way to serve God. And over those 5 days, he would basically lure those 2 women into his room, but they too would be sacrificed. And then on the 5th day, the person who exited the motel room was Jason. And that luggage he was carrying with him contained the body parts of the 3 people he had just killed. He brought those body parts to that dumpster and lit them on fire. Jason was arrested. He confessed that David and the 2 women were not actually his first victims. He said that just a few years earlier, he had sacrificed his girlfriend, and that house fire that destroyed all of his belongings and prompted him to go live in this motel was set by Jason himself, because he had sacrificed his roommate and needed to get rid of the evidence. Jason was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to death. He is currently on death row in Texas.
That is crazy. He did that to all his victims. Pure madness, man.
Her mom sold her to be used for a ritual. 6-year-old Jocelyn Smith was from South Africa and was always known to have a beautiful smile on her face. On February 19th of 2024, Jocelyn was not feeling well, and instead of her mom Kelly staying home to take care of her, she left her alone with her boyfriend Jochen. By the time Kelly arrived home, Jocelyn was missing. Now Kelly didn't seem worried at all. She continued with her day as normal and even went on a trip a couple days later. Neighbors in the area were worried and searching for Jocelyn, while Kelly, on the other hand, was completely chill and didn't have a care in the world. People in the local community started talking and found out that Kelly sold Jocelyn. She had sold her to a traditional healer in South Africa known as a Sangoma, and they wanted her for her eyes and skin. Jocelyn's body parts would be used in rituals in return for money. A local pastor had testified that he had once heard Kelly talking about selling Jocelyn for $1,100 but would go down to $275 if she needed to. Kelly, her boyfriend Jochen, and a friend named Savino were all arrested in connection to Jocelyn's disappearance. In May of 2025, the 3 were all found guilty, and even though there was no evidence, the testimonies is what did it, and the 3 were sentenced to life in prison. When they got their sentence, Kelly was shedding some tears, and their friend Savino was smiling and had no remorse whatsoever. To this day, Jocelyn's body has not been recovered.
So in April of this year, a cell phone was seized from a criminal here in Houston, Texas, as a part of Operation Restore Justice. And when authorities looked through that cell phone, they found absolutely disturbing images and videos. Eventually, they were able to track down that the man that appeared in those child pornography videos was Jeremy Plonsky. He was seen in the videos graping an infant. Yes, you heard that correctly, as hard as that is to stomach, an infant, a baby, while he was wearing his state trooper and Army reservist uniforms. So you not only had this guy actually doing this while at the same time being a state trooper and Army reservist, but he was actually wearing those outfits while he was committing these horrific acts against this baby. And keep in mind, filming this all and sharing it. As of right now, Jeremy's been indicted on 4 different counts. And according to the affidavits, he produced 4 or 5 different videos of him assaulting children. Mainly the infant baby that I was talking about. Now, obviously, this should be life in prison. And in Idaho now, it could be a death sentence. But the minimum is 15 years. And knowing the American justice system, he'll probably only get that. Maybe 15 to 20. Which is obviously incredibly fucked up, and they should be working on changing those laws. I've talked about it so many times, but nothing ever happens. People always want to talk about how they want to protect children, but they don't actually want to pass legislation or change anything about protecting kids. So many of these politicians are all bark, no bite, and they don't actually try to affect any sort of change. If you want to hear me rant about this sort of stuff, though, listen to my podcast, The Conspiracy Files, which is available on all streaming platforms, where I'm exposing rings of predators just like this guy every single week. Or you can watch the show on YouTube. My channel is The Conspiracy Files.
I don't know if you guys have heard about this TikToker who created content preaching about healthy relationships and teaching men how to be better partners. And he portrayed himself as being this caring and respectful man. Well, he recently murdered his ex-girlfriend. The crazy part about this story is that I actually know of a woman who was supposed to fly out from Toronto to Miami to meet this man sometime before he took his ex-girlfriend's life. Thank God she didn't go. This guy's name is Joy Chandra Nath. He's 29 years old, and this happened in Miami. And he stabbed his ex-girlfriend. She was 24 years old, and her name was Maria Camila Garcia Molina, in her car, and apparently her 3-year-old daughter was in the car and saw everything. Her daughter was found wandering alone on the street, and she was covered in her mother's blood, and they later found Maria's body in her car with stab wounds all over. Police arrested this man after Maria's daughter told them that her mother was with Joy, and then she fell asleep. Investigators said that Maria had a restraining order against this man when he began stalking her after she ended things in November 2024. Before her death, Maria found an AirTag in her car, and she caught this man hiding near her house several times. When they arrested him, he had scratches all over his face, and he also had Maria's phone and purse on him, but he said that she had gave it to him that morning. Like I said, I know of someone who met this man on a dating app on Facebook. I guess it's like Facebook dating. And she was supposed to fly out from Toronto to Miami to go meet him, but she completely cut him off before this thing happened, after another girl reached out to her to tell her that he was also talking to her at the same time. And apparently he was talking to so many women at the same time. He was charged with second-degree murder, and he's in the Miami-Dade County Jail, and he has no bond. I think it's very common for people to meet on dating apps nowadays. I mean, I've done it, but it's very important to always be aware and know that there are risks, because you don't know who this person is at the end of the day. People are so unhinged nowadays, and someone can put up this whole facade about themselves on social media or a dating app, and you wouldn't even know it. And this is my own personal opinion, but I would never fly out to go meet anyone. I think the risks are a lot higher. You're going to a different country to see someone that you've never seen before. If anything, they're coming here where I feel safe and I have family.
Yeah, man. Like I said, the internet is a facade. You can put on a whole act. You never truly know a person, man, until I guess you talk to them in person, meet them, truly know them, man. The internet, it's all fake. Seekers, if you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker, seeking the truth. I really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys give a thumbs up in this video. Comment down below. Hit that post notification bell so you're also get notified when I upload my next videos. You guys are going to catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.